More news on former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, we found out today, made some very disturbing comments through text messages about the January 6th insurrection. According to the text messages released by the New York Times, Carlson texted a producer saying he found himself rooting for a mob of Trump supporters to kill an Antifa protester. I'm going to read the text message here. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching video of people fighting on the streets in Washington. A group of Trump guys surrounded an Antifa kid and started pounding the living S out of him. It was 3 against 1, at least. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable, obviously. It's not how white men fight. I'm going to say that again. It's not how white men fight. Yet suddenly I found myself rooting for the mob against the man, hoping they'd hit him harder, kill him. I really wanted them to hurt the kid. I could taste it. Then somewhere deep in my brain, an alarm went off. This isn't good for me. I'm becoming something I don't want to be. The Antifa creep is a human being. Much as I despise what he says and does, much as I'm sure I'd hate him personally if I knew him, I shouldn't gloat over his suffering. I should be bothered by it. I should remember that somewhere somebody probably loves this kid and would be crushed if he was killed. If I don't care about those things, if I reduce people to their politics, how am I any better than that kid? This is Tucker Carlson being remorseful and having a rare point of self-introspection. And I've described the MAGA movement often as the MAGA mind virus. This is the mind virus at work, being spelled out in this text messages, how you can go from a normal human being to someone who is part of this cult that wants to overthrow the government, that will give your life, your liberty, your future in service to the MAGA mob. We've seen this over and over again. People like Kanye West at one point in time was a normal human being. He was infected with the MAGA mind virus and lost nearly everything. The message was sent hours after the insurrection at the Capitol and was redacted in court filings. The text message alarmed Fox News board of directors and played a role in Carlson's abrupt firing last month. The decision to fire Carlson was made by Fox Corporation Chief Executive Lachlan Murdoch and Fox News Chief Executive Susan Scott, just 1 week after the network agreed to pay $787.5 million to Dominion Voting Systems over the network's dissemination of election lies. And if you wonder why they settled for nearly $800 million, imagine Tucker Carlson on the stand having to answer to that text message live and live on the evening news. That's why they tried to settle. That's why they tried to keep this out of the media. Let's bring the panel in. Rebecca, what does this text message tell you about, one, the nature of our news media, and two, what exactly it takes to get fired as a white man in this country?
I mean, you see my face, right? Like, that text is pretty tame in comparison to the things that Tucker Carlson has said live on air. I mean, if anything, it shows like he had a bloodlust for someone getting beat up on the street by a group of people. And then to even say, oh, it's dishonorable. That's not how white men fight. I don't know if you heard me laughing as you were reading that comment. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, as an aside, we know that white men don't always fight dishonorably. You could just ask the Native Americans, and you could ask them about Christopher Columbus. But that aside, I don't think this is the reason why Tucker Carlson was fired. This is very tame compared to the other things that he has said.
And Larry, I want you to pick up on that point. What do you think he meant when he said, this isn't how white men fight? This is dishonorable. So this is just how other people who are less honorable fight? What do you think he was insinuating there?
I think what he said is consistent with what you saw on his show. So everything is centered within whiteness. So when you behave a certain way violently, you know, in savagery he was describing, that's the way that minoritized groups are supposed to behave. But listen, what I want to say is, in terms of the comments he made, I think Fox News was looking to get rid of him because what he said in his text message is really tame to some of the crazy things he said on his show. I want to highlight a couple other things when they talk about white men and violence. The black folks who were the victims who were murdered the Red Summer of 1919, or Rosewood, or the Coe Massacre, or Tulsa Massacre, with like a word with Tucker Carlson in terms of white supremacy and violence in the United States. This country has a long history of violence against black folks and other minoritized groups. So this idea, like he said, that white men in particular don't behave like that. We saw that in January 6th. We see that in terms of how law enforcement interacts with black folks. And once again, we continue to see it in terms of the way Black people are treated from going to the movies, to the mall. They're just sitting in their car, they're at home. So this violence perpetuated against us is ongoing, and it's part of our lives 24/7, 365.
And Larry, to that point, this is one of those reasons I think Ron DeSantis is trying to ban CRT, because much of that history, I feel like a good portion of America, including white America, doesn't know. When Tucker says this isn't how white men fight, that's exactly how white men fight. If you look at the era of lynching in America, it was always a group of white men dragging a 14-year-old boy like Emmett Till off to murder him. It was always a group, 10, 20 people, taking people to lynch them. If you look at many of the massacres that took place, they roll in groups to get an individual. Why do you think that so much of this education is missing from the American zeitgeist, and what can we do to restore it?
The Ocoee massacre in Rosewood, which happened in the state of Florida. They don't want to talk about these issues. And like I said, this is historical. I mean, we could talk about contemporary violence, but these are historical issues that happen. And once again, Black folks were the victims of these horrific, crimes. So they don't want to talk about it because this country's always struggled to reflect on its own evils, whether it's internment camps in terms of the Japanese internment camps, or the Trail of Tears, or Jim Crow when it comes to dealing with, in terms of how Black people were treated. So we have a long history of these issues, but we also have a long history of ignoring it through erasure.
And Scott, both of us make our rounds on cable news. And when I saw this, that this somehow was the vitiating factor to result in the termination of Tucker Carlson, I chuckled a little bit, because we all know that if the producer had this, they probably had hundreds of other text messages like this, and they could have turned it over to Fox executives at any time if they actually had a problem. It was the lawsuit and the money that they were afraid of, not Tucker being a racist.
Yeah, you and I have done Tucker Carlson. They have live tapes of him. They don't need private text messages from him. That's the first thing. But the lawsuit was settled for a lot of reasons, not just Tucker Carlson. They probably had a lot of texts, and they had a lot of anchors, and their testimony, including the owner's testimony, wasn't going to be good. That was like winning a trial without even having to spend the money trying the case. But here's the thing about his text. Pull his text back up. He didn't apologize for feeling that way. He lamented that he felt that way. He knew it was wrong, but he never corrected himself or apologized or did anything to take back the first half of his text, right? So he wants to kill the Antifa guy or Antifa individual, regardless of whether white men fight that way or not. White people taught Black people violence. Let's not forget that. You want us to do better, you do better. But he did not apologize for it or retract it. He lamented that he felt that way. But that didn't do anything to take away the fact that he felt that way. At the end of his text, he felt that way. At the beginning of his text, he felt that way. And right now, as we debate and talk about this issue, he feels that way. Don't get lost in what he lamented at the second half of his text, because the second half had nothing to do with the first half, which was really how he felt. And he felt comfortable manifesting those feelings in writing a text to a producer at Fox. Think about that.
And Scott, on that point, how can we as the community help to push changes at Fox? Because regardless of what you feel about them, they have by far the largest news audience of any cable news outlet. The ratings came out, I think, today, showing that Fox's primetime ratings are higher than CNN and MSNBC combined. And now Lawrence Jones, a Black man, is going to be sitting in for Tucker, kind of guest hosting to see if he can get the full-time spot. But we should have some kind of voice in being able to stop this type of racist messaging being pumped into the minds of people around this country. When I talk about that MAGA mind virus, that is how it is spread. How can we stop the spread of this mind virus? Because we see many of these white supremacist mass shootings, as we talked about in the last segment, these people are often very loyal Fox News viewers.
Well, yeah, but it begins even before Fox. Why do we have generational racism, perpetual racism? It's because people that don't look like us are teaching their children, their new children, every generation to hate Black people based on the color of their skin, to commit violence, right? Now, Fox has a really unique business strategy. They don't they know they're not going to appeal to people that are intelligent or who are balanced or who are non-racist or don't have these far-right views. But there's so many of that audience who tunes into Fox, who appreciate their messaging, don't care about it being fair or balanced, if you will, and that those advertisers who you would normally attack to shut down a Fox News story or organization, you don't have that same leverage because the advertisers either don't care about what they're promoting. A lot of them do, and they don't advertise there, but they don't care because that MAGA crowd, those millions of viewers, don't turn into NBC or CNN for any type of balance. They tune into Fox because they're feeding that group, that massive group, on the rhetoric that they want to hear. So is it a real news organization in the sense of what other organizations want to be fair and balanced? I'm not convinced that they really do want to be fair and balanced. They serve a population, and they make money on serving that population, not on being fair and balanced.
Well, you notice Fox stopped using that moniker fair and balanced about the time they fired Bill O'Reilly. They no longer present the alternative side of the argument. Now it is simply a propaganda machine to push right-wing conspiracy theories. The truth and reality do not matter. And that's why so often when we have these conversations, like the conversation we had on Monday with the Black conservative, where they could seem unaware of reality as it exists, because they exist strictly within this right-wing media silo. So they don't understand the issues that affect real Americans because they believe deep down in their minds, hearts, and souls. And this is not an act that they put on. These people are not joking. They believe these conspiracy theories deep down within their souls. They think that Hunter Biden's laptop is the most important story facing the United States of America and the international community. They actually believe Trump did a really good job as president. They're not lying when they say that. And so they're completely surprised when they get information to the contrary. And that's what makes them so dangerous, because once you're infected with this MAGA mind virus, it's nearly impossible to shake. We've seen people lose everything they have to the MAGA movement. There are people sitting in prison right now because they sold out and their brains have been corrupted by that MAGA mind virus. I don't care how much you loved Obama, you weren't going to prison for Obama. There are people in prison now because of their love for Donald Trump.
But that's all they're being fed.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.